Hello everyone, I am Matt Williamson. How's it going today? It's going great here. Can't complain. And today is Matt's mailbag. But before we get into that, I have not talked the Jaylen Warren injury with you guys. And there's not much to throw out there, but I will say this, that of course you're not going to see him for the rest of the preseason. Of course. But I did a episode of The Drive with Dale yesterday, and Dale did a deep dive on Jaylen Warren a year ago and had a really good conversation with Warren's high school coach about Warren's senior year. He had a really bad hamstring injury, which sounds worse than this one. And every week they thought there was no chance he's going to play. And the day after the game, he couldn't even walk. And every Friday night, he was out there and the best player on the field. So he's dealt with this before and overcame it before. He's a big-time tough guy. I also get the impression there's a decent chance he's there week one. But if not, it's a pretty good opportunity to buy one more week and while he heals and unleash Cordarrelle Patterson, and especially Najee, of course, against, Patterson's old team. So I don't think that's a bad situation if it's at most only week one. And that's the way I'm kind of viewing this. But you know me, I don't like to comment deeply on injuries. But there you have it. All right, so we have many good mailbag questions. Sloss Boss asks, and actually many of you ask very similar questions. I'm just using his time frame. And he asks, is it time to panic about the QBs, O-line, and wide receivers after Pickens? And I think the short answer is no. I mean, if you listen to any of the podcasts the last couple days, these guys haven't played a lot together. That group was really good in the joint practice against the same Bills defense. I have hope for Russell Wilson. I don't think he's going to be Pat Mahomes or Josh Allen, and I understand that's who you're battling. But I think Wilson gives them a much better chance to win than the previous quarterbacks, and I have great faith in the scheme, especially compared to last year. Holy smokes, or previous coordinator. And I don't think you guys have seen much of that yet. They're holding that back. O-line, I think it was just a bad day by Broderick Jones, to be honest with you. And both these O-lines were pretty darn rough. And we've told you all along, expect growing pains with a young offensive line with a lot of moving parts. So I think there'll be growing pains. But I think that there's a bright, bright light at the end of that tunnel. Wide receivers, other than Pickens, yeah, I think it's time to panic about that. We're getting pretty darn close here. I don't dislike Van Jefferson as a 3. I don't dislike Austin as a borderline 3. But I don't see a 2. And I know you guys want to say Pickens is clearly a 1. Well, he might be one day, but he's not Jamar Chase. Other receivers other than Pickens, to me, worry me. And there's a big hole on this roster at wide receiver. So, yes, this team doesn't panic. That's the wrong word. And I do think, Omar Khan is incredibly patient and has a plan in place. But we're getting to the nitty-gritty here. This episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. From the preseason NFL to college kicking off, BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our winner-take-all $300,000 NFL Survivor pool for the upcoming season. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on the game of blackjack or poker or unwind with one of our 150 slot games. Head to the website today and use the promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, all caps, and get in on the action. Bet online. The game starts here. Thought this was interesting. A lot of O-line stuff today. Jalen J3 asks, are we sure that James Daniels is better than Spencer Anderson at right guard? I feel like right now we could get the same play for cheaper with Spencer. Could be wrong. I don't know that you're wrong. I think Spencer Anderson is a real find, and he played a fair amount of right tackle in this game. Now, these O-line injuries have gotten in the way, but I thought James Daniels and or Herbig would have been nice trade chips. And I guess maybe you could still pull it off. I don't think Daniels is a bad player, though. I mean, I think the starting guards are probably the 6th or 7th best pairing in the league. I think Siamali is a really good player. And I think Daniels is a quality player, but the cheap thing is certainly there, and I don't think Daniels really has any chance to return next year, especially after drafting McCormick. I understand what you're saying, but I don't think you're going to bench him. Can you afford to trade him? I think it's just a positive that Anderson is there. Probably is your number 2 center, probably your number 2 right guard. Depending how offensive tackle stuff happens, he could also be that guy. So I think we're just really happy Anderson's there, and this is probably an issue for next offseason when Daniels is playing elsewhere. But I hear what you're saying, and I guess you could still entertain a Daniels trade, but then you're pretty darn thin, where that Herbig injury would have been nice if he was in the wings to pull that off. Along those lines, Matt Sable asked, do we know if Pat Meyer is a good coach? He was fired from Carolina. Is there a reason Arthur Smith didn't bring in his own O-line coach? And my man Naz throws in, Munchak is missed. Well, Munchak is missed. That's no question about it. I've often said this, that in a perfect world, if I were an owner and I hired a head coach, I would then give the best O-line coach I can find any amount of money they want. I think that there's 5 or 6 of them in recent memory, Munchak included, that are worth their weight in gold and more. I mean, think about how many Finneys and Hubbards and undrafted dudes that he turned into capable players. And he turned good talents into great players, great talents into stars, average talent into good. That is incredibly important. Do I know if Pat Meyer's a good coach or not? I really don't. Being fired, I don't know. I'm not saying he isn't. Being fired from Carolina, everyone's fired from Carolina. I mean, I think that owner is the anti-Steelers, and I don't hold that against really anyone. They're the least patient organization in the league. That being said, he didn't really develop their O-line while he was there. I do think a guy like Spencer Anderson makes Pat Meyer look quite good. I mean, he took a 7th-round pick, and we're talking about it a question ago. Should he be the starting right guard? I think we'll see where with that on McCormick. I know there's a lot of complaints about putting Jones at left and right and left and right. I don't know if that's him or the head coach, but I'm sure the head coach has something to do with it, and it's gotten a little peculiar. We'll see when Fautanu comes back how that all plays out, but I don't think that because he had a bad game against Greg Rousseau that the team and Pat Meyer are ruining Broderick Jones. I don't believe that at all. But yeah, Munchak's missed. I mean, he's a Hall of Fame type offensive line coach as well as Hall of Fame offensive lineman. Naz also asked some other things. You think a deal gets done with Freiermuth or Hayward before the season begins? I do, but I also know how they do things financially. I still think that they have hopes. I'm not trying to get your hopes up, but the Ayuk thing isn't done yet. And I think they want to land that big fish or deal with receiver, and then then they move on to the next one, which is extended Freiermuth. Then you move on to the next. They prioritize things for a reason. It's just how they do business. I know that they won't extend any of these guys during the season. That won't happen. But yes, I think that they get done before the year. Naz also asked, if you could choose any previous Steeler player to insert into the current team, non-quarterback, who would you pick? This isn't easy. There's a lot of good ones to pick from. Like, I know a lot of you will not be thrilled with me, but I think Antonio Brown's the best Steeler receiver ever. But would I want to add that personality to this team right now? No. John Stallworth would be second on my list. That wouldn't be bad. Put Stallworth next to Pickens? Yeah. I mean, that would be my offensive pick. I think the obvious answer, though, is Joe Green. I mean, always give me another D lineman, and I like this D line. But I also would consider Rod Woodson or Mel Blount. That wouldn't be bad. You know, I mean, there's so many great ones to pick from. But I think I would go with Joe Green, and that just says something about me as a team builder. Give me big people, and, oh, by the way, the leadership and all that stuff too. Not that the other guys aren't good leaders. Well, AB isn't. But would you rather have Stallworth or Joe Green? I see arguments for both. Woodson and Blunt wouldn't be bad either. But I think you can win with Jackson. Last one he asks, how closely do opposing NFL teams monitor opposing practice squad players? There's a few Steeler camp standouts that I would love to have on the practice roster, like Loudermilk or Robinson, but other teams might have room for them on their 53. The answer is they very, very closely monitor them. Like, for example, the year that I was with the Browns, my pro scouting responsibility duties were the AFC West, and I watched every snap of every AFC West or NFC West teams and monitored their practice squad and would go to our pro personnel guy and say, they got a guard on our practice squad that's a lot better than our crappy guards or in Cleveland. So yes, that stuff is very much monitored. There are people in charge of every team, every player. And that doesn't mean that they're going to steal your guys. But what also happens, and we did this a lot in Cleveland because we were terrible. That was Ben's rookie year, by the way, that we were bad. The Browns were bad. At the end of the year, you start plucking people off good teams' practice squads because you're looking around the room like, you guys aren't helping me win. Why not get somebody else in here that, maybe from a better organization? Last question, Joey Bag of Donuts. Is Patterson really the best option to replace Warren? Wouldn't a speedier back be better? I do think he's the best option. I think we just haven't seen enough of Patterson in black and gold. But he was quite good 2 years ago as a feature back for the Falcons. Watching him a little in practice, we haven't seen much. Speed is not a problem, Joey. I know he's big, and he is a weird body type. He is a very, very athletic man. I mean, I was going to say young man, but he's not young anymore. He's not a developed running back, but especially against his old team in week one, I fire Patterson up for me. And I do worry, because we saw a little of this this last game, that he can be a little bit of a tell when he comes in the game. Like, they put him in motion and they swung the pass to him. Is that just to put that on tape? I mean, it went nowhere. Everyone on the planet knew he was getting the ball. I'm hoping that's something that's in the preseason that's not, a staple that becomes really predictable. But I think if Warren's out in week one, you're going to line up Patterson and hand him the football in a traditional manner. And I think you might do that in this third preseason game too. I mean, we'll do a preseason preview for week 3. But I think as rough as the offense has been, you want to put the starters out there. But I don't know that I would risk Najee in this game with Warren's injury. Like, I might put all the offensive starters out there, but not Najee, and make Patterson kind of the feature back at the beginning. So, all right, everyone, good stuff. We will talk soon.